people in respect this issue to tell us where are these monies, because those monies belong to Turkey. Well, that also did not pan out. Nothing came to Turkey. However, it is significant that if Turkish foreign minister, based on wealth of documents, comes to a conclusion that a large sums of money were embezzled from Constantinople to Berlin on the account of the very three criminals. This is one very significant evidence to support that the monies were embezzled and taken out of Constantinople and put in Berlin. The second evidence comes from no less than US High Commissioner Bristol. Admiral Bristol was sent to Turkey specifically to pursue this matter of the Armenian gold, because there was this confusion made that the victorious allies, after the end of the war, confiscated from Berlin bank accounts the equivalent of $25 million, 6 million Turkish gold pounds. And people thought at that time that those monies that were confiscated belonged to the Armenians. My research indicated that these two were two separate issues. There were two separate accounts. The Germans had deposited $25 million to the benefit of the Turkish government during the war, because Turkey was their ally, and they deposited this money so that Turkey can issue paper currency. That money was taken by the allies. So the US was involved and had a vested interest to find out whether or not that money was Armenian, because the US was also entitled to some of that money, because US also had helped Armenia during its build-up after the genocide, so that we should get some of that money. Why not? Or, as Senator King of Utah mentioned, that some of this money should go to the Armenian orphans. Therefore, there was an interest, the US at different levels, to pursue this matter further. So, Admiral Bristol, US High Commissioner in Constantinople, hired informants, summoned the American ambassador in London, in France, in Berlin, to come up with a report to find out about this Armenian gold. Interestingly, and on May of 1925, Bristol came up with a big 25-page report. In this report, he clearly shows that in 1916, the Germans deposited $5 million in 1915 on the account of the Turks. However, the Unionists or the Ittihadists deposited equivalent sum of money in 1916. So the Admiral Bristol, in his lucid and comprehensive 25-page report, says that there are two separate transactions that took place during that period. One is 1916. That's the German money that was taken up by the victorious Allies Reparation Commission. That's different. And there is 1916, another account of the same amount that was deposited by the Ittihadists. And he says that after the massacre, the Turkish government was able to confiscate the bank accounts and the safe deposits of the Armenians from all Ottoman bank branches in the eastern vilayets, the historic Armenian lands. And through this confiscation, which was against the Ottoman rule, and they could not circumvent that rule, so the Treasury Secretary intervened, Mehmet Javid, who says, okay, we will give you receipts. We will confiscate these monies because those are abandoned properties. And whenever the Armenians return back to their homes, they will have their receipts and we will reimburse their money. So on that basis, the directors of the local bank branches of the Ottoman bank branches, they issued the receipts, and they collected upwards of 6 million Turkish gold pounds, about $25 million. And they put them together all in Constantinople. This was the second independent evidence that showed that these monies were really confiscated and they really belonged to the Armenians. The third evidence comes from the actual perpetrators. During 1921 discussions in the Turkish parliament, where openly they were discussing the massacres and the lootings, the Kemalists were not still in power yet. So during these meetings, one of the provincial governor of Erzurum, Tahsin Bey, said that the Turkish government, by orders of the interior minister, collected the sums of $25 million worth of money from the bank accounts, and they were deposited in Berlin, in Constantinople. However, by September 1916, when the Turks realized that the war was going to tilt towards the Allies, and they were going to lose the war, and they were afraid that the Constantinople is going to be taken over, so they transferred the money, says the governor of Erzurum, to Berlin. Here comes your third order of evidence saying that that deposit, 1916, was an Armenian money. You know, when the Germans enticed the Turks to enter the war on their side, they promised the Turks that we can finish the Russians in 4 to 6 months. They didn't know that the British and the French will join the Allies, so they will give them a hard time. So by September, when the Turks started to realize that the war may tilt to the other side, they actually smuggled the money out of Constantinople to Berlin. Another order of evidence comes from the private discussion that was held between Talat and the Ambassador Morgenthau Sr. in Constantinople. As you know, Henry Morgenthau had many private meetings with Talat, as he was the only person left from the West to represent the Western states. And he constantly tried to persuade Talat on humanitarian basis to save, at least to protect the children and women from the massacres. But he was not successful in that. In his final pitch in 1916, before he left Constantinople back to Washington, Morgenthau said to Talat, you know, what you're doing is a very dangerous and has a very negative impact on Turkish economy. You know that the Armenians are your industrial people. You know that they are the major workforce and the productive elements in Turkey. So by eliminating them, you are eliminating and destroying your own economy. Why don't you start those killings? And Talat's response was, we don't worry about that. We have calculated their wealth and economic power. All of their economic power does not exceed 5 million Turkish gold pounds. This is the exact money that was collected and confiscated from the Turkish Ottoman bank branches. So there comes yet another evidence indicating that this $5 million were indeed the monies that were transferred from the victims' accounts. to Berlin.